Hey everybody. So now that our world is in a pretty good place, we're going to start doing some animation work. And I'm going to show you guys how to use triggers and how to animate in Blender and have those animations work inside of our Nowhere platform. One thing to keep in mind is that we are exporting using the GLTF file format, which means that we can't export animations like material colors or light intensity. We can only export transform animations, right? So we can do the location of entities or meshes, we can animate the rotation, and we can animate the scale. And using those things we can do a lot, but just remember animating materials and light intensity and some other things will not end up working. For this demo, what we're actually going to do is we're going to take our teleporters, which we have scattered throughout our world, and as you can see right now, I'm using my local dev environment rather than World Runner, so I can show you guys some advanced features that will be coming shortly and will be in World Runner by the time you guys are watching this video. If you go over here and look at this teleporter, you can see it's, first of all, slowly moving up and down. And as you approach it, the text will get bigger in size, and click here to comes out, right? So we make a little bit of interactivity. So whenever you go by this button, it will pop out, and whenever you leave and go far away from it, it will shrink back to where it was. So I'm going to teach you guys how to recreate this effect for this teleport to eggplant button over here. So we go back to Blender. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to have to parent this teleporter to our mesh. And teleporters, as well as screen entities and content frames, can be animated or can be children of animated meshes. So in order to make this process a lot easier and not having to do two separate animations, we're just going to take our teleporter. We're going to take our teleport to eggplant button, make sure that's the active object, and just parent it, right? So parent to the object, keep transform. Now this teleporter is actually the child of our button. So if we go ahead and move our button up and down, you'll see the teleporter moving with it. I'm going to go ahead and hide this teleporter so that we can see our button. I'm going to want to add a quick little bevel to this square button just to make it look a little prettier. So we can go to our modifiers tab. We can go to bevel, maybe make this a 0.75 bevel, and let's make it 10 segments so we get a little bit more rounded corners. And now we have more of an actual button looking thing. So let's apply that. And we can start animating. We can animate in two ways. You can either click these keyframes over here. You can click I. You can insert keyframes this way, and that'll insert to the selected object. Or you can do visual keying, but I don't really like to do that because that means every time you move an object, it's going to get added. A keyframe is going to get added, and that can get messy real quick. So what I typically do is I will just run my mouse down, clicking and holding to all of these keyframes over to the side over here of the screen. And we are at the 0 in the timeline. So what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe all of these values. So our location, rotation, and scale are going to get keyframed at 0. And all we're going to really do is move it up on the Z axis. So let's go to the 30th frame. We'll click G to move our object. Let's click Z to lock it to the Z axis. And then let's move up 1 unit. So let's type in 1 on the number pad, and it will move up our button 1 unit. We click enter. Now our object is in a different position. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to keyframe in this position. So now if I scrub through my timeline, you'll see my button will be moving up and down. The next thing I'm going to do is copy the first keyframe and paste it at the 60th frame. That way we have a complete loop. Within our plugin, you can choose to do a alternate loop, which should allow you to play forward and then backward, and forward and backward, and forward and backward. Currently, that's not functioning correctly, but it will be in the future. You could use our plugin and expect that to work, but for now, I'm just going to actually add in the end of this animation to the singular animation because we're going to make this loop on world load. So let's copy the first animation here and paste it on the 60th frame. Now when we scrub through, it goes up and down, right? So this is going to be a nice perfect loop, and we can make sure we know the name of it, which is teleport to eggplant button action. Now, I already did this earlier for the other button, but one way, and currently the only way to make things animate on world load is to make a trigger that is larger than the world. And I already took the liberty of doing that. So if I were to just click Alt-H and unhide everything, I can go ahead, you see this giant trigger right here. And all I did was I added a trigger entity and I scaled it up by 1,000. And I also, if I turn on my nav meshes over here, my collision meshes, you can see that I have another cylinder inside this trigger. Let me hide the trigger for you. That is my nav mesh. So people can't go outside of this trigger, this zone, this cylinder, which means they can never leave our trigger, which is what we want. That way we can ensure that anytime anybody comes into our world, that the animations are always playing. Let's turn off our collision meshes. I'm going to go ahead and make sure we have this giant trigger selected. All right. And if we go to our, what's this called? The little teardrop scene properties over here, we can go to our nowhere project settings and go to the nowhere entities panel. And in here, you're going to see a trigger properties part of it. And this is where we're going to specify the animations that we are going to play on a world load. Right now, I have the teleport to egg button action playing, and as you saw, that was working in the previous video. We're going to add another action here, and we're going to make sure the action is teleport to eggplant button action. So what we want to do now is make this loop, because it's going to be going up and down constantly, and make sure it's playing forward. Now both of these things should be playing on step 0 of our chain on the enter step, right? So when we enter this for the first time, we enter this trigger zone, these two animations are going to play. If we put it on step 2, when you entered the trigger zone the second time, they would play. Now, the same thing goes for the on leave steps. And I'll do a more detailed video on the specific chained animation system later. But there's an on leave step here, which acts the same as the on enter step. And if you add actions or animations to the on leave step, the first time you leave, step 0 will be executed. However many actions you add to step 0 will be executed. The second time you leave, step 1 will be executed in the on leave chain. But for now, for this particular trigger, we're just going to use the one on enter step. And we've triggered that looping action already. So now we can hide this because we don't really need it right now. Now we're going to go and do some more animations on our button. We can also hide our teleporter because we don't really need to see that right now. So let's hide that again. So now we have teleport to eggplant button, and it's going to be moving up and down, and that's going to be happening in world, which is great. The next thing we want to do is create some of that interactivity of when you walk near this button. We want the text to grow in size. We also want another little piece of text that says click here to pop out of this button. And we're going to do a very similar thing. We keyframe our animations to make these happen. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure my text actually has a center point in the center of the text. So when I scale it up, it stays centered. We can do that by going to your paragraph settings, and you can change the horizontal and vertical alignment to center center. Once we do that, we're going to have to readjust our text position, but that's okay. Just do it, eyeball it, make sure it looks good, put it sort of in the center. And actually, you know what? Let's be more accurate. So we're going to click on the mesh. We're going to snap our cursor to selected. We're going to click on the text. We're going to snap our selection to cursor, and we're going to go over here. We're just going to pull this out until we can see the mesh. And now we have it directly centered on our mesh. So we're going to go and make this only a 10 frame animation, and we can confirm that by going over to this one over here and making sure that this is also, it's a 10 frame animation. So what we're going to do is just stay consistent and keep this 10 frame animation. So we'll go ahead and keyframe all our values here, go to the 10th frame, and we're just going to scale it up until it's like big enough to fit the size of the button. Keyframe it again. Now we have a grow of that text, right? So we're going to rename our action here to stay consistent. Teleport to eggplant grow, or text grow, we'll put it, right? So now be very specific. Teleport to eggplant text grow. Easy. We're also going to hit Shift D, pull this up so we can have another piece of text, right? We'll edit it. Over here, we're going to type click here to. And we're going to scale this down so we can have that there. And for this one, we're going to go ahead and we're going to delete these keyframes. We don't want them anymore. And I'm going to move this inside of the card. So you can't see it at first. We're going to keyframe all of these positions. We're going to go to 10. We're going to pull this out so you can see it now. Make it equivalent to the, there we go. Looks good. keyframe that value. So now when it's placed, that comes out of it. We're going to call this click here eggplant reveal. So we have a consistent naming schema. We know what this animation is called, and that's going to be revealed. And now we're going to add a trigger to this button, or around this button. In order to do that, we already have our cursor near the button. So we'll just go ahead to our Nowhere Entities project panel, and we're going to click the trigger button. Create a new trigger right around our button, and we're going to scale this up until it looks like a decent size. A little bit wider than the button, and we're going to make it a little bit longer. We can shift this over here. So whenever you walk into this area, or somebody walks into this area, they are going to activate the chained animation system that we specify for this trigger, whether that's an on enter or an on leave step. So make it a little bit wider. That looks pretty good. And we're going to now start adding in our animation. So when the user enters this trigger, we want to add a step. And on this enter step, we want to make sure that the click here eggplant reveal plays forward, right? And then we're going to add another action at the same time on that same step. So on the first enter, we're going to go ahead and make sure that the teleport to eggplant button action, which is the actual text growing, and we can, oh no, it's right here, teleport to eggplant text grow. Let's just confirm actually our naming schema so we make sure we get the right ones. So if I click on the actual button, that's the action, that's already being triggered. We have the teleport to eggplant text grow right here. And it looks like there's two of them. So in order to clear that out, let's just make sure we have the right one. We're going to go to File, External Data, or Clean Up, Unused Data Blocks. And that will purge our unused animations and materials and meshes so that we are more organized and we're sure we're getting the right one. So let's just Alt-H to pull everything back. We can go hide our outside one again. Let's click on our trigger, make sure we have that selected. Go back to our animations again, and we're going to see we cleared out the second animation. So we're going to click teleport to eggplant text grow. So we want that to play forward as well. So when we enter this trigger, we want the eggplant text to grow, and we want the click here eggplant reveal to happen. We want it to come out of the text card, right? We want the opposite to happen when you leave. So let's add an on leave step, and on the first step, we'll add two actions, and these two actions are going to be click here eggplant reveal and teleport to eggplant grow. And what we're going to do is make sure they're playing in reverse, because we want these to be playing backwards. So when you leave, you're going to have the text go back into the card, and when you leave, the actual text that says teleport to eggplant is going to shrink, similar to what we saw in the last teleporter in the previous example. So now that we have all these specified, we can go ahead and export and see what we have going here. So let's go ahead and click our Nowhere project and click Export GLTF. And that will give me an export to my export folder, which is here. And I'm going to drop these two new files into my local world directory so I can run it in my local dev environment for you guys rather than world running right now. If we go ahead and refresh this page, we should, barring any mistakes that I made, see that the same behavior happening to the egg teleporter is now happening to the eggplant teleporter. So there's our egg one and how it reacts, and if we go over to the eggplant one, we have a very similar thing going on. So you go close to it, and the text gets revealed and shrinks, and you go back closer, and so on. So you can see it working properly here. As you enter, it grows. As you leave, it shrinks. And yeah, so that's the basics of animations and triggers inside of Nowhere. But we can also trigger these animations using clickable meshes. So in order to do that, we'll do a skybox swap, and we'll make that skybox change when a user clicks a certain mesh or a button in world. And that'll be for the next video.